Hey honeys, welcome back to our Beesness with all your handpicked headlines for the last week. I'm excited to say that this weekend I'm heading into my first friendly sort of rugby tournament of the season. It's called tens style of play, meaning there are literally 10 people on the field from either team at a given time. It's not really an internationally or nationally recognized official style of play, but it will be a great opportunity for yours truly to learn once again what it's like to get tackled and shake the rust off headed into a brand new season. So pretty excited about that. I'll make sure and tell you all how it goes. But because this is an art history podcast and not a rugby one, let's get back to the topic at hand and cover our news stories for the week. As always, you can find our source document with all of our original articles cited and listed in the episode description. We really only had one story from this last week that was a follow-up in terms of further news regarding legal cases surrounding Just Stop Oil activists. This particular time, 2 of the activists were acquitted by a judge after gluing themselves to a Turner painting back in 2022. The backstory and activist info here: the 2 environmental activists, Paul Bell, a PhD candidate in climate impacts, and energy advisor Edward Whittingham, stuck themselves to the frame of the artwork Aeolian Harp of 1809, writing in chalk on the floor of the Manchester Art Gallery the words "No New Oil" as well as the Just Stop Oil logo. The protest occurred in July of 2022, but on Thursday, this acquittal for the charges of criminal damage of less than $6,500 was formally completed in Manchester Magistrate Court. The Just Stop Oil statement on the acquittal read in part, quote, "We are grateful for the few within the legal system who understand that Just Stop Oil supporters are acting in self-defense and seeking to defend life on Earth, while the law is protecting those who are committed to its destruction," end quote. Moving right along, we heard about changes last week in the Pollock-Krasner Foundation's representation firms, which will bring the 2 oeuvres back together. The new representative will be the Kasman Galleries, and we care because that gallery already represents the painter Lee Krasner, Pollock's late wife. The move of Pollock's work to their representation will bring both under the stewardship of a single gallery for the first time in approximately 50 years. Says one upper staff member at Kasman, quote, "To unite Lee Krasner and Jackson Pollock under the same gallery roof once again, and to be able to further strengthen the mission of the Pollock-Krasner Foundation is truly an honor," end quote. We were also excited by announcements that a Velázquez portrait is set to make a rare appearance in the U.S. The work in question is the famed Spanish artist Diego Velázquez's Queen Mariana of Austria, completed between 1652 and 53. It will go on view this December at the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena, California. The why we care on this one, fairly straightforward. It will be the first time in over 30 years that this painting will be on display in the U.S., and it will mark the painting's West Coast debut. It's only ever been on view, in fact, once in the U.S. during a 1989 retrospective at the Met. The portrait will be the focus point of an exhibition titled after it at the Prado to feature other artists who were also collected by the Habsburg court from that era. For example, Giuseppe de Ribera, Francisco de Zurbarán, Guido Reni, and Peter Paul Rubens. This context-based approach is meant to give viewers a deeper understanding of 17th century, basically court painting, by putting these Velázquez works of Mariana and her role in his career into conversation with the rest of the court paintings. While it's very unlikely that I would be able to go see it myself, this is a very unique thinker opportunity that if you're in the area, highly recommend you take advantage of. And speaking of thinkers, our first headline from the institutional and legal section of the arts world definitely is one. Headlines made clear that New York City's Rubin Museum is facing repatriation demands ahead of its imminent closure. The museum permanently closed its Manhattan location doors on Sunday, October October 6th, and with that looming date, a local group of activists started calling on the institution to repatriate Tibetan and Himalayan objects that were in its collections. The debate started in March when Tibetan-led campaign Our Ancestors Say No, or OSAN, began collecting online petition signatures to demand the return of what they allege are stolen sacred cultural artifacts. They also began protesting in person. These objects in question, it should be noted, are the ones making up the Rubens' popular Tibetan Buddhist shrine room and include scroll paintings, religious ritual objects, musical instruments, furniture, ornamental textiles, and even more. Of course, anytime we see repatriation and art in the same headline, yours truly is interested, but the important part of this story is that despite these protests and the increasing popularity of repatriation efforts, the plan as of now is still for the installation and objects within it to relocate to the Brooklyn Museum with its June reopening. The thought behind this plan is cool enough. It will have a custom space in the Arts of Asia galleries. The movement of the exhibition will also officially mark the start of a 6-year collaboration between the two museums. But at its core, this is an issue of ownership as well as access. A statement posted to the OASN website reads in part, quote, "As a group of Tibetans organizing to hold the Rubin Museum, accountable for decades of violent exploitation of our sacred ancestral objects, we strongly oppose the museum further displacing the Tibetan Shrine Room to the Brooklyn Museum for the next 6 years," end quote. What happens next will be, I think, in part a battle of public sentiment as well as will between the Rubin and the OASN. I will, of course, keep you posted on what happens. We love a good steam moment, and sure enough, there was a fascinating study announcement last week. One has found that original art stimulates the brain more than reproductions do. So what was this study? How it worked? It was a neurological one commissioned by the Mauritshuis Museum in The Hague, Netherlands. Researchers outfitted 20 subjects ranging in ages from 21 to 65 with eye-tracking equipment, EEG brain scanners, and MRIs to record the participants' brain activity while viewing 5 original works in the museum and then poster replicas from the museum gift shop in varying orders. The combination of technologies allowed the researchers to identify the emotions triggered by the paintings in these participants to see what areas of the brain lit up, so to speak, and how much. The results showed that real-life artworks activated the preconeus, the part of the brain associated with self-reflection. It also showed that viewing artworks in person created a 10 times stronger emotional response than viewing reproductions of the same works. A slightly funny detail, Girl with a Pearl Earring was one of the included works and elicited the strongest response, inducing, quote, deeper personal engagement and self-reflections, end quote, than the other works tested, according to this report. So anyone who finds that dramatic over-the-shoulder gaze compelling, you're not alone. So why'd we care about this study and its results? I mean, come on, guys. But aside from the obvious, we care because of the timing of it. It was released late last month, right around the period when the Netherlands right-wing government was planning to cut back subsidies on the culture sector, which could have decreased up to 350 million euros or about 386 million US dollars a year from the local arts ecosystem, which would have affected almost every art, business, space, institution of all kinds. It's unclear whether that vote passed or not. However, we can also use this information for our own health opportunities. We can use it as an excuse, as if we ever needed another one, to go see art in person. It is quite literally good for us. In a Highbrow Honey First, every one of our specifically Discovery announcement category headlines this week centers on artworks and whether or not they are fake. First, Van Gogh specialists have officially identified 3 fakes across private collections. The works in question are as follows. First, Interior of a Restaurant, which first appeared in the 1950s. We then had Head of a Woman, which is a now known forgery originating between 1902 and 1909. We also had Wood Gatherers in the Snow, a certified original done in 1884. This particular faked version came to light in 1912 with a likely creation date of 1904. The backstory for the discovery of their non-authenticity hinges on the creation of a new catalog raisonné. A quick recap on that arts term: it is a published collection of all known works by an artist, often with critical commentary included. This particular one was being done by 3 Van Gogh museum specialists: Thilo Miedendorf, Louis van Tilburg, and Saskia van Oudhuisden. Their combined research revealed serious questions about the legitimacy of these 3 works, which they published in the October issue of the Burlington magazine. Public attention, of course, followed. And now a quick recap of why they were suspicious. They were suspicious. In the case of Interior of a Restaurant, the brushwork does not resemble any original styles. Plus, the colors in it were anachronous. They included a manganese blue synthetic pigment that was patented in 1935. Experts also noticed that the bloom times of various flowers included in the work did not match up with the supposed late autumn creation date. As for Head of a Woman, this one came from the estate of a controversial part-time art dealer who died in 2007, but was authenticated the following year by the Van Gogh Museum. The trio tuned into this one because of a verification request by the French owner of the Nuenen peasant woman artwork, which was submitted in 2019. The forgery date was set to between 1902 and 1909 because that's when the original changed hands from the artist's mother to an inaccessible private collection. It would have been the easiest point in time at which to create a fake and pass it off as the original because the original was known to be changing hands. The determination of it as a fake came through technical research, primarily examinations of the canvas, the gesso, and application of the paint. And finally, Wood Gatherers in the Snow, 1884. That original does exist, I do want to make clear. However, the copy was authenticated in large part through reports of a 1957 Sotheby's sale of the work by a British businessman, the Earl of Inchcape, Kenneth Mackay. But this watercolor was rejected by the specialists in 2020. It's believed to be a copy from a photo due to several mistakes that the forger made. They missed, for example, a long vertical stick typically used by people in the Brabant region and which was featured here, as well as a snow-covered farmhouse roof in the background. This is obviously very scandalous news that these 3 are forgeries. It's also particularly embarrassing for the prior guy, one might say. All 3 of these works had previously been accepted as authentic in Jacob Bart de la Faye's 1970 catalog raisonné and by French museums. So all of these people who verified these works in the first place, well, now their reputations are a little damaged. Furthermore, these paintings have been bought and sold for real money, despite being forgeries. Our source article failed to specify which, but one of them sold through Christie's for nearly $1 million in 2011. That headline is crazy enough, but within the same week, a painting found in a Capri basement was authenticated by experts as a genuine Picasso. The background here, a man by the name of Luigi Lorusso first found it in 1962 at the latest, when he was scavenging the basement of a house on the island for goods to sell. Lorusso brought the canvas back home with him to Pompeii, where it was a treasure display mystery item until Lorusso's son Andrea began his years-long search for its origin story and further answers. I had to admire the way that Andrea went about his search. He reached out specifically for advice from expert art historians and investigators. Hi, hello, you're welcome. The LaRosa family finally received an answer from the Arcadia Foundation, an art appraisal and research organization, which was able to confirm that the reddish signature mark on the canvas's upper left corner does in fact belong to the famed Spanish painter. Though there was, of course, a bunch of scientific testing that went into authenticating the work, the foundation particularly noted that it spent months comparing that mark to the signature of confirmed original Picassos. Pretty neat that despite the advances in scientific testing, sometimes us art historians, we don't believe it unless we ourselves can see it. Before we can officially call it a Picasso, though, it must be verified, the last and final step, by the Picasso administration, run by the artist's daughter, Paloma Picasso, as the foundation does have final say on the work's authenticity. We will, of course, let you know what happens. That's all I have for you this time, honeys. Hope you've enjoyed the buzz. Hope you found something sweet to enjoy besides my goofiness tonight. I guess that's what I get for recording at 1:38 in the morning. Anyways, take care, hydrate or dihydrate, and get some sleep, honeys. We will talk again soon. This podcast and this episode were created, produced, hosted, and researched, as well as fact-checked by yours truly, Celia Bugno. It was edited by our brand new sound engineer and producer of our intro music, Chris Meinhold. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite streaming platforms, as well as your social medias.